My name is Dr. Marian Hirschfeld. I'm part of CABI's communications team, and I'll be hosting today's launch event. So let's take a look at the agenda. We will begin with a welcome from CABI's CEO, Dr. Daniel Elgar. Then we'll hear contributions from representatives of FAO and the governments of Kenya and the Netherlands. We'll hear about some of the impacts that CABI's PlantWise and Action on Invasives programs have had. And then Dr. Uli Kuhlmann will introduce the new PlantwisePlus program. During the second half of the meeting, we invite you to take part in a question and answer session with the program's team leaders. Finally, CABI's Director General Development, Dr. Dennis Rangi, will round up and close the session. Let's start with an introduction from CABI's Chief Executive, Dr. Daniel Elgar.
Hello, I'm Daniel Elgar, CEO of CABI, and I'm delighted to be talking to you today on the occasion of our launch of an important new program, PlantwisePlus. I think this program really illustrates what CABI does best. For those of you who don't know us, CABI is an international intergovernmental organisation with 50 member countries across all continents, and we work through a network of local centres focused on the needs of particular countries and regions. And our goal as an organisation is to improve people's lives around the world by applying science and evidence to solve problems in agriculture and the environment. What that means in practice is putting high quality information, skills and tools into people's hands. We've got a particular expertise in crop health, with a long track record in helping smallholder farmers to grow more and lose less of what they grow to pests and diseases, and therefore improve their livelihoods. We're also experts in many forms of science communication, including development communication and extension work, where we use a wide range of different routes to share agricultural knowledge with smallholders. And in recent years, we've become increasingly focused on digital development using technology to reach and empower smallholder farmers. And finally, realising the importance of connections to markets, we work on creating sustainable value chains and improving access for smallholder farmers to markets for their crops. So I think in the round, these skills and experiences are why CABI is really very well positioned to deliver a major new global programme to help smallholder farmers increase their incomes and grow safer and higher quality food in a sustainable way.
Thank you, Dr. Elgar. Next up, we hear from Dr. Ismahane Elouafi, a chief scientist at FAO, on the challenges facing plant health and global food systems.
Plant health is increasingly under threat. Climate change and human activities have altered ecosystems, reducing biodiversity and creating new niches where pests can thrive. FAO estimates that annually between 20 to 40% of the global crop production are lost to pests. Each year, plant diseases cost the global economy around $220 billion and invasive insects around $70 billion. The spread of transboundary pests and diseases intensified by climate change, international trade, and global human mobility is growing alarmingly. Rising temperatures also means that more plant pests are appearing earlier in places where they were never seen before. The global intersecting emergencies of climate change, including climate variability, biodiversity loss, pollution, and the COVID-19 human health crisis have increased risk and vulnerabilities of the agri-food systems. In 2020, between 720 and 821 million were undernourished globally, as many as 161 million more than 2019. At the same time, almost 1/3 of the global food produced is lost or wasted, including about 14% at the post-harvest level and 17% at the consumer and retail levels. Food systems are responsible for 34% of the total anthropogenic greenhouse emissions, with the majority of the emission associated with agriculture, land use, or land use change activities. There are also a range of socioeconomic challenges, such as demographic change, urbanization, growing inequalities, and unequal access to resources, all of which negatively impact agri-food systems. For plant health, as for human health, prevention is always better than cure. Prevention is critical to avoiding the devastating impact of pests and diseases on agriculture, on livelihood, and on food security. Shoring up the resiliency of cropping system against pests and diseases is far more cost-effective than dealing with the full-blown plant health emergencies. And that's where integrated pest management is one of the best way we can improve the cropping system resiliency against pests and diseases in an environmentally friendly ways. This ecosystem-based approach combines different management strategies and practices to grow healthy crops while minimizing the use of pesticides. The IPM, the Integrated Pest Management Toolbox, is rather large and includes the use of resistant varieties, crop diversification, conservation biocontrol, biopesticide, as well as use of innovative technologies like insect pheromone for mating disruption and many other innovative technologies. Avoiding poisonous substance when dealing with pests not only protect the environment, it also protects the pollinators. It also protects the natural pest enemies. It also protects the beneficial organisms and the people and animals who depend on plants. Efficiency, monitoring, reporting, forecasting, and particularly early warning of such plant pests are paramount for improving preparedness and minimizing losses. Multi-stakeholder development programs such as CABI, PlantwisePlus are crucial in addressing the global plant health and challenges facing agri-food systems. These programs help improve farmers' yields, so there is more food and more income for rural communities. They do this by improving access to IPM information and technologies, helping farmers be better equipped to deal with pests and diseases in a changing climate. And they work across borders, helping national government better understand both the situation on the ground and in their region. FAO has collaborated in many areas with CABI in the past, and we look forward to working with CABI again with their PlantwisePlus program. FAO New Strategic Framework 2022-2031 aims to support the achievement of Agenda 2030 through the transformation to a more efficient, more inclusive, more resilient, and more sustainable agri-food system. And protecting plants is essential toward achieving our goal.
Thank you, Dr. Elouafi. We're now going to find out about the impact that CABI's PlantWise and Action on Invasives programs have had over the last 10 years. First, we will hear from Professor Hamdi Boga, the Permanent Secretary at the Kenyan Ministry of Agriculture, Livestock and Fisheries, on PlantWise in Kenya.
In crops, the department, we deal mainly with the development of crops and also the research on some of the issues that are affecting crops. One of the major issues, of course, is pests and diseases, which is a major challenge to productivity among our farmers. And we have been working under the PlantWise program with CABI since 2010 to improve that. Most of the time we have zoned the farmers into catchments where they are affected by certain pests, and have taken time to introduce the farmers to how you carry out proper pest management and control through scouting to identify the pests, and through lessons about how to use the right pesticides and to use them in the right way so that they don't harm the environment and they don't harm the persons who are spraying. Through these initiatives, we have seen increased productivity, reduced pesticide use, also reduced the number of pests in different areas. And through these forums, we have created what we call plant clinics, where plant doctors, these are the extension workers who have been trained through this PlantWise program, take farmers through the various steps as far as pest management and control is concerned. And I think this is an important intervention that we have undertaken and that we continue to undertake to manage pests. Pests are part of a big problem that has stopped us from exporting some of our most valuable crops like avocados, like mangoes, and even crops like the French beans are affected by certain pests like thrips. So the proper management of pests and their control, and getting our farmers, especially the smallholder farmers, to appreciate how to do this properly, and making sure that our extension workers have up-to-date information and through the platform that has been created out of this project will guarantee us success and increase productivity and higher incomes for farmers, and we'll be able to continue accessing our markets, which sometimes we lose because of certain notifiable pests.
Thank you, Professor Boga. As you may know, the farmer experience is the most important thing to PlantWise. So now we will hear from 3 farmers on the benefits that they've seen as a result of the program.
Before the PlantWise clinic came in this area, personally I used to have a lot of problems, especially in my garden and the small citrus fruits that I have on the farm. But now things have changed. After I started learning these things from the plant doctors, I came to apply them back on my farm. And I saw that things were now changing. Things were changing. I was having health plants, health vegetables, health tomatoes, cabbages, onions, and all these things. A few years ago, I would make like a 5,000, 6,000, that is per year. Last year, 2014, I got about 15,000 from January to December. I've never missed any plant clinic session. I've been very committed, very faithful, because I've seen the benefits.
មានសត្វពាកគូនឹងគឺបំផ្លាញខូចដំណាំយើងអស់ធ្វើយើងខាតបង់ជាច្រើននឹងដំណាំនៅដីចម្ការរបស់យើងនឹងដើម្បីខ្ញុំកម្ចាត់សត្វពាកគូនឹងគឺខ្ញុំប្រើថ្នាំកសិកម្មជាច្រើនចំណាយលុយច្រើនហើយប៉ះពាល់សុខភាពប៉ះពាល់បរិស្ថានជុំវិញខ្លួនខ្ញុំចាខ្ញុំបានរៀនសូត្រពី clinic ការធ្វើជីទឹកជីគោកថ្នាំធម្មជាតិក្រោយខ្ញុំប្រើថ្នាំធម្មជាតិហើយគឺល្អប្រសើរឡើងជោគជ័យ 95% ប្រើនឹងខ្ញុំមានអារម្មណ៍សប្បាយចិត្តខ្ញុំបានសុខភាពមកវិញសុខភាពទាំងអ្នកញ៉ាំសុខភាពទាំងអ្នកដាំខ្ញុំសប្បាយចិត្តចំណាយតិចចំណេញច្រើន
पहिला समस्या हुँदा हामी एग्रोवेटमा जान्थ्यौं उहाँहरूले जस्तो किसिमको औषधिहरू दिनुहुन्थ्यो त्यही औषधि विषादी ल्याएर छर्थ्यौं तर त्यसबाट उपलब्धि चाहिने भएन र हामी अहिले त्यो पछि हामी साथीभाइ मिलेर चाहिने एउटा शिविर बाली संरक्षण शिविर आउनु भयो र खबर पायौं र हामी गयौं संरक्षण शिविरबाट हामीलाई अर्गानिक तरिकाको सल्लाह सुझावहरू दिनु भएको छ यसबाट हामीलाई फाइदा हुन्छ स्वास्थ्यलाई पनि फाइदा हुन्छ अहिले त्यसमा सन्तुष्ट भएर अब फेरि अर्को महिनादेखि राम्रोसँग खेतीपाती गर्ने तरिकाहरू अपनाउँदै जाने छौं यसबाट हामीलाई राम्रै पर्फेक्ट भएर हाम्रो गुणस्तर चाहिँ माथि उकासेको छ र यो गर्न सकियो भने अझै पनि हामीले देशको लागि केही गर्न सक्छौं
I would now like to introduce Dr. Uli Kuhlmann, Executive Director of Global Operations at CABI. Dr. Kuhlmann is also the new Program Executive of the PlantwisePlus program. Dr. Kuhlmann's presentation provides an outline of PlantwisePlus, including the challenges the program seeks to address and the outcomes being worked towards.
Hello, everybody. Through PlantwisePlus, we aim to address a number of remaining challenges. First of all, the public extension staff numbers are insufficient in order to reach all smallholder farmers that need professional advice. I'm talking about relevant advice, high quality advice, but also about clear objectives for the extension messages. Secondly, we have a lack of smart tools and processes for pest and invasive species surveillance and mitigation of outbreak risk to reduce impact on food security. Third, we have an insufficient awareness of the hazards of excessive pesticide use among the farmer community, but also about the advisory service providers and, of course, at the end, the consumers of the agriculture produce. And fourth, we have insufficient access to effective and affordable low-risk alternatives that farmers can use instead. Our vision for PlantwisePlus is that smallholder farmers have increased incomes and grow safer and higher quality food through sustainable approaches to crop production. We have the following approach. We have learned a lot from Plantwise and Action on Invasives, our former programs. We will now merging them into PlantwisePlus, but we will evolve these under PlantwisePlus. We have a 10-year program now in place. We are aiming to reach 50 million women and men farmers in 20 countries. We are starting with a proof of concept phase, which lasts until 2023. And after 24, we are starting a scale-up phase, which will end in 2030. This will require over 100 million euro from a number of different consortium members. In PlantwisePlus, we have 4 major objectives. Our first objective is about the enhancement of knowledge and the uptake of climate-smart plant health practices through responsive digital advisory tools. So we will be building the capacity of public and private sector agro advisory service using decision-making tools so that they can guide farmers on sustainable agriculture practices. And we will be gathering and feeding information into data-driven quality assurance and market intelligence systems. Objective number 2 will increase the supply of safer food through enterprises driven by women and youth to meet growing demand by consumers in rural and urban and peri-urban markets. We will be raising consumer awareness of issues related to hazardous pesticide use in food production and drive the demand for higher quality food, thereby motivating farmers to use low-risk practices to meet new and higher quality market requirements. Objective number 3 is to strengthen the systems for detection and response to pest outbreaks. In particular, we will be developing data-driven processes as part of a systematic approach that allow countries to identify, prioritize, and respond to pest threats quickly and effectively. We will be also supporting countries to develop national planning capabilities for responding to crop health threats, such as the fall armyworm, and before they arrive. The objective number 4 will really focus on the development of the capacity of systems for local production and the distribution of low-risk plant protection products. We will be working with policymakers and agro-input suppliers to improve the availability and accessibility of safer plant protection products. We will be supporting also small-scale businesses to produce biocontrol and biopesticide products for local use, considering business models to ensure sustainability. So what are the new elements in PlantwisePlus? Based on the lessons learned from PlantWise and Action on Invasives, we have now introduced a few new elements, also to address the gaps which we have identified in our prior programs. So we will be focusing actually on climate smart pest management activities. We will engage far more private sector agro-input dealers. We will be empowering women in agriculture. We will make a contribution to create also employment of younger people in agriculture. And we will drive the consumer's demand for safer food. Partnerships have been always important, not only in PlantWise and also in Action on Invasives, but for PlantwisePlus, we need also new partners. We will continue with our public sector organizations, which we have worked already with in PlantWise and Action on Invasives, and they are at national and sub-national level. These were the extension, the regulation, the research and education, and also agro-input supply. Now we will be engaging with civil society organizations that stand up for the rights and interests of consumers in the domain of food safety and health. Private sector partners are essential, including farmer organizations, agro-input suppliers, as I already mentioned before, trade associations and other value chain actors. Our anticipated impact will be that we have really improved sustainable agriculture production, and we are supplying more and safer food. And we are doing this by supporting farmers with more comprehensive advice to grow the quantity of food which is required. And we are helping countries to predict, prepare themselves for and prevent plant health threats, and thereby reducing crop losses. And we're really helping farmers to improve also the quality of food grown. With this, we make a strong contribution also to the SDGs. Particular SDG 2, rapid detection of and target response to new pest invasions. SDG 5, facilitate really women's access to advisory service and inputs. And SDG 13 will contribute to the preparedness of farmers and communities for climate change. And we are preparing and providing adequate advice and resources to countries for the prevention or control of invasive species. And that will contribute then to SDG 15. Partnerships, as I said just before, are important, and therefore we will be further bringing a range of public and private civil society organizations together to build the capacity in responding to plant health risks. And thereby we are contributing to SDG 17. So I hope I gave you a very good and quick overview of what PlantwisePlus would like to do and on which areas we would like to focus. This of course was a very short time to do this, but I hope you got that very quick overview. I would like actually to thank you. I'm looking forward to work with you in partnership on a number of different levels. The national level, as I said earlier, is very important for us, but also the regional level and the global level, and it was different partnerships. So thank you so much for all your support. We have now a short PlantwisePlus video which has been filmed in and around Nairobi. It highlights the benefits to both the farmer and consumer of adopting safer and more sustainable farming practices.
In Kenya, many farmers still rely on high-risk chemical pesticides to protect crops from pests and diseases. the overuse and mishandling of pesticides can prove hazardous to farmers, the environment, and the end consumer. But there are other safer, more sustainable ways to farm.
My name is Samuel Dungu. I'm an organic farmer. I grow organic tomatoes here in Sagana. And here we use organic farming methods where when we are planting the seedlings, we use organic manure or compost. And then we don't use synthetic pesticides. We spray natural pesticides. And the yield, we are happy with it because this is 2 acres and we are able to get about 900 crates for the whole period.
Some retailers are encouraging their suppliers to reduce or switch from using chemical pesticides and adopt low-risk practices. Producing safer crops is not only better for consumers, but can open up new domestic market opportunities.
Over the last few years, as we get more developed as a country, there has been greater need for healthy consumption. So we see, especially in the supermarket, the demand for fresh fruit and vegetable growing. As the demand from the consumer grows, we're seeing a lot of retailers actually going to the farm to ensure that even the farm processes are carried through what is a sustainable way of producing, and definitely that safety measures are being put in place. What are the fertilizers you're using? What are the labor methods you're using to ensure that that quality and safety is maintained?
CABI's new PlantwisePlus program aims to increase the supply of and demand for safer food for local domestic workers. PlantwisePlus will work with smallholder farmers in Kenya and elsewhere to build their knowledge of low-risk farming products and practices. So all consumers can have access to higher quality produce and farmers can earn more by responding to market demands.
The use of organic farming methods is slightly expensive than conventional farming methods. But if you look at the whole picture, it's better because we get a better price. Organic farming is farming for the future. It's more sustainable. And I would like to encourage every farmer to adopt organic farming methods because it will ensure that we are giving or we are serving our customers safe food.
Thank you, Dr. Kuhlmann, and what an inspiring video. We're going to move on to our question and answer session now. So if you have any questions, please put them in the chat now. Answering your questions will be the 4 PlantwisePlus global team leaders. Claire Curry is focusing on knowledge delivery to agricultural service providers through digital tools. Dr. Monica Kansime, whose role within PlantwisePlus is to identify key safety challenges related to food production. Dr. Belinda Luke, who is overseeing the development of local production and distribution systems for less harmful biological plant protection products. Dr. Ivan Raman Sharma, who's focusing on strengthening decision support systems for the detection and response to pest outbreaks and plant health threats. And also joining them is Dr. Wade Jenner, who is the Deputy Program Executive of the PlantwisePlus program. Now, before we hear from them, we'd like to find out how much you know about the issues. So we've got a little poll prepared for you. The first question to you, the audience, is this. Mancozeb, a well-known fungicide, was banned from the EU in February 2021. What proportion do you think, what proportion of plant doctor recommendations do you think include Mancozeb? Please use the voting buttons now to make your selection. Okay, we're going to close it there. Let's have a look at the results. Okay, that's interesting. Dr. Luke, can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yes, I can. So those people who voted for 30% are correct. So when the EU ban pesticides, then it does have a knock-on effect, obviously to countries that want to export crops to the EU, but it also has effects that are not direct. So, for example, pesticides that have been banned in the EU are often not registered in other countries or not re-registered in other countries, which has a huge knock-on effect then to the farmers within that country. So what PlantwisePlus is doing is looking at the alternatives if a chemical pesticide is banned, so that if it does get banned in the other developing countries, then there are alternatives for the farmers to use. Thank you. Back to you.
Thank you, Dr. Luke. We have our first question here, and it's to Dr. Raman Sharma. How do you prioritize the invasive species to invest in for detection and control?
Thank you very much for the question. CABI has a process which we use to prioritize invasive species threats. We normally use our horizon scanning tool. And this was a tool that was developed during Action on Invasives. And what the tool does is that it supports national partners to understand what kind of invasive species threats are likely to affect their region and prioritize which are those threats that are most serious and put into place measures either to control them or mitigate against them. So through this process, we get stakeholders together to look at the long list of different threats that appear as part of the output of that horizon scanning output, and then based on a certain criteria, prioritize which are the key threats and come up with mechanisms of how they can mitigate against them. And so this tool is widely being used in our member countries, and we encourage others to keep using it to prioritize both national threats, but also regional threats in terms of invasive species and come up with measures to mitigate against them.
Thank you very much, Dr. Raman Sharma. We've got a second question here for Ms. Curry. How will CABI ensure that new digital learning content is relevant to target users?
Good question, thank you. So we are working with the target users who are plant doctors, who are extension workers trained under the PlantWise programme, other extension and agri-dealers who we know are a source of advice for farmers for their crop health problems. So we work with those groups to find out what the challenges they're facing in their work are, and then work with them to make sure that the solutions we're delivering, which includes the way it's delivered, so exactly the format of the tool and also the content delivered, actually is relevant to them, addresses their problems, and we get feedback from them regularly. We maintain contact so that it can be improved and stay relevant as things are updated.
Thank you. Please do keep your questions coming via the chat. Let's move on to another poll. The second question for you is, what is the annual economic cost of invasive species to Africa? Again, please use your voting buttons to give us your best guess. Okay, we'll end the poll there. Let's have a look at the results. Wow, look at that. Very equal results. Dr. Raman Sharma, would you be able to give us some more details about this?
Thank you, Maureen. These are very interesting responses to this question. The first point we'd have to note is that all these figures you see there are economic loss figures due to invasive species globally in Europe, Southeast Asia, North America, and Africa. And the correct answer to this question is actually D, 66 billion. And this is a figure that has been united from CABI side done this year, which tried to estimate what are the potential economic losses due to invasive species. And this is quite a significant amount of loss that we are seeing. And the key takeaway I can see and we see from this result is that, first of all, invasive species afflict all regions, but Africa is the hardest hit with 66 billion. And you can imagine what this impacts in terms of food security, livelihoods, and trade. And so PlantwisePlus is going to be looking at how we can mitigate against invasive species and reduce this economic loss to figures less than the 66 billion that you're seeing on the screen. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Raman Sharma. So let's go to some more questions. We have a question here to Dr. Kansime. Food safety concerns go beyond pesticide risks. Are you planning to look at other risks, such as microbial contaminants and mycotoxins?
Thank you for that question. Yes, we acknowledge that food safety concerns are quite varied, and they may also differ from country to country. But as Dr. Kuhlman indicated in his remarks, this program will be implemented in a phased approach. So in the proof of concept phase, we have chosen to focus on pesticide risks. As we go into the scale-up phase, then we will be able to focus on other food safety concerns, also begging onto the evidence that we shall have gathered during the proof of concept phase. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kansime. Let's go to another question here. It's a question from Wayne Coles to Wade. How important is private sector finance to the successful implementation of PlantwisePlus?
Thanks, Baron, and thanks, Wayne, for the question. As PlantwisePlus has been conceptualized, it was very obvious that we needed to involve private sector more explicitly from the start. Under PlantWise, for instance, private sector was an optional partner, but never a key fixture necessarily of the implementation. Under PlantwisePlus, there are a number of different activities where we expect to involve private sector, such as obviously in working with agro-input dealers. So their participation is key to the implementation of some of our activities to deliver certain outputs. We would also be expecting to partner with biocontrol manufacturers. We've already heard some comments about biological control as a key option for replacing some of the most hazardous plant protection products. And so we look forward to that kind of collaboration with significant biocontrol manufacturers. Those are some examples.
Thank you very much, Dr. Jenner. So we have a question here for Dr. Luke. How is PlantwisePlus encouraging the use of lower toxicity agricultural products?
Thank you. Well, Wade's just answered a couple of those. We'll be working hopefully with agro-input dealers to encourage them to stock more safer bioprotection products, but also we'll be working with governments to look at their registration process. Often registration of biopesticide is put through the chemical system. Biologicals are obviously very different to chemicals, so that system is not always best for a biological. So what we're hoping to do is work with countries like Pakistan, for example, where we've got work going through at the moment, where we're trying to help the governments design a registration process for safer plant protection products. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Dr. Luke. Let's move on to do another poll, but please do keep your questions coming. So the next question we have in our poll is, what proportion of agricultural service providers do you think have access to a smartphone or tablet? Please use the voting buttons to give us your best guess. Okay, we can see the answers coming in on my end. Okay, let's end it there and have a look at the results. Ms. Curry, why is that relevant?
Thank you. Yeah, this is really interesting results, because I would have agreed with the results here that it was going to be one of the lower numbers, but actually from the groups we've spoken to earlier this year to try and find out what equipment's available on the ground, actually 90% of the agricultural service providers that we spoke to did have access to either a smartphone or a tablet when they're carrying out their work advising farmers. So that gives us a really good indication that actually targeting development and content delivery through mobile apps will be an effective way to get that information to these users.
Thanks very much. Yeah, interesting insights there. Let's go to some more questions. So we have a question here from Vinod Pandit to Dr. Jenner. Will the approach to the PlantwisePlus implementation be different to that of PlantWise?
Okay, I think this question could be interpreted in different ways, but I'll approach it from one angle at least. So yeah, the one major difference about PlantwisePlus compared to PlantWise is that it consists of more diverse sets of elements. And so when we select a country for implementation, there will be a thorough analysis of which aspects of PlantwisePlus make sense for the context of that country at that time. And that's a big review process that we're going through now since the inception of the program to match the elements of the program that fit with our focal countries. So rather than delivering the entire package to every country where we would initiate, we should expect to see optimized planning and fitting in of the elements for each country setting. Back to you, Matt.
Thank you very much. We have another question here from Abdul Rehman to Dr. Roman Shauna. How are we targeting the spread of potential invasive species in keeping in view the global trade and climate change factor?
Thank you, Abdul Rehman, for that question. There are a number of ways that we are going to be looking at handling invasive species with regard to climate change. One of the areas is through ecological modeling, being able to predict where these invasives can establish. This is both modeling the pest, but also modeling the natural enemy to determine where best and which environment best a natural enemy is best suited for. So that when we do classical biocontrol, other biocontrol approaches, we are targeting the pest where we are sure that the natural enemy is going to thrive. But also through developing climate resilient technologies, such as biological control and low risk solutions that are more sustainable and can fit nicely within a climate resilient approach. And of course, with regard to trade, CABI has the pest risk analysis tool, and we support countries to do pest risk analysis to understand what could be the potential threats that could come to their regions as a result of trade, and put into place measures to mitigate against those threats reaching them. And so these are some of the things that we aim to do in PlantwisePlus to ensure that we can still be able to trade despite climate change and other threats due to invasive species.
Thank you very much. There's just time for one last poll. So let's have a look at that. In Kenya, what is the main food safety concern by consumers? Please use the voting buttons below to give us your best guess. Okay, well, I can see a clear favorite is forming. Let's see. A few more seconds. Please give us your votes. Okay. And we will end it there. Let's have a look at the results. Dr. Kansime, could you elaborate on this a little bit?
Thank you for that. Yeah, the correct answer in this case is pesticide contamination. This also adds to our earlier surveys that pesticide contamination remains a thorny issue. We undertook a survey, nationally representative survey in Kenya, where we talked to over almost 2,000 consumers. While they were aware of various food safety issues, pesticide contamination was their biggest concern. And this survey and information further authenticates the need for PlantwisePlus to address pesticide contamination and also address food safety issues for domestic markets. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We just have time for maybe one or two more questions. Let's have one here from Mohammed to Ms. Curry. Under Plantwise digital tools, what will be CABI's approach to work with the private sectors who already have digital tools, or will you just promote CABI's own tools?
Great, thank you. Yeah, so you probably heard us mention from various people today already about partnerships. And we're definitely, as part of the PlantwisePlus toolkit of digital tools that will be developed, it's not just going to be CABI tools. We're keen to make sure that, where tools already exist, and we've done some of the work already with finding out what tools already exist and assessing the quality of them, that the ones that are good and are already out there and used by people are included in the toolkit and are promoted. And where we want to maybe help to expand the use of those in different countries or for different crops, then we'll develop partnerships with those organizations that have already developed those tools to work with them rather than, starting to build something again from scratch that's very similar. Thank you.
Thanks very much. We have one from Neil to Dr. Jenner. Will we continue to run and expand on the successes of Plantwise plant clinics alongside and as part of PlantwisePlus?
Yes, that's an excellent question, one that we've heard many times. So absolutely, as the PlantWise and Action on Invasives programs have been rolled into PlantwisePlus, we actually have a very specific part of the PlantwisePlus program that we refer to as PlantWise backstopping. This is maintaining our links with all of our existing PlantWise partners to ensure that, that we can support the monitoring and ongoing scaling up and implementation of plant clinics and related PlantWise activities. But that's a very key part of going forward.
Okay, so we only have time for one more question, but we'll keep the other questions that have been submitted and we'll try and reach out to you and answer them afterwards. So please feel free to contact us either by the website or our social media. We'll reach out to you if we didn't get to your questions. We've got a final question to Ms. Curry from Jackie Opara. It's a two-part question. Typically, internet connection is a major issue in sub-Saharan Africa. Accessing helpful apps could be a problem. How do you plan to work around it? That's firstly. And secondly, is there a gender digital gap as well? And how do you ensure that women benefit from these apps?
Mm-hmm. Yep, great, thank you. So taking the first part of that question about the internet access, that's definitely something that when we've been talking to users, that is an issue. So when we are looking at the mobile apps, and if we're doing development of mobile apps, looking at offline capabilities is definitely an important component of that. So we'll consider that when users are out in the field, kind of making the assumption that they won't have access to the internet, and any functionality will have to operate offline. And the second part of that is about making sure that we're also reaching women advisors. Yeah, so the user groups that we're talking to and getting our information from, and really guiding the work that we're doing, we have made sure that there's a good gender balance in those groups, so that yeah, what we're doing is being guided by their input. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And I'm afraid that's all we have time for in terms of questions, but you can contact us via the website, plantwise.org, or via social media. I'd like to hand over to Dr. Dennis Rangi now, the Director General for Development at CABI, for a closing statement. Over to you.
Thank you, Maureen and Jambo, to everybody. I'd like to close this launch by, first of all, thanking our partners for their generous contributions today. I'd also like to thank my colleagues for an insightful overview of what we have achieved in the past and what we're looking to achieve with PlantwisePlus. And most importantly, I would like to thank you all for joining us today and gracing us with your attention and questions. PlantwisePlus is a program built on partnerships, and it's precisely this spirit of collaboration we have experienced today that will ensure the success of the program. But I want to leave you today with a crucial thought. Biological control of pests and diseases is a reality, but farmers are crying out for lower risk products, and the only thing preventing them from using them today is lack of information, and more importantly, lack of access to the products. Through CABI's work on the bioprotection portal, which will be part of the PlantwisePlus toolkit, we've had testimonials from farmers and advisors. And what they're telling us is that to be able to fight against a great range of pests and diseases that damage different crops, we need to have a wide portfolio of biological products. They're also telling us that new biological products have been coming into the market, but we need information on how to use those products in a proper way. So the more the growers learn about biological control products, the faster they will adopt them in their crops with success, ensuring more and safer food. We also know that a crucial element will be informing the general public about the benefits of biological control of pests and diseases. This will help to increase the market demand for food, food produced in a more sustainable way, and ultimately drive up the speed of adoption of those biological products. That is why I want to end by asking you to join in the funding and supporting the development of research and communication tools, campaigns, and policy change that PlantwisePlus will deliver. In concluding, join us in a quiet revolution to change crop production to help it grow not only safer food, but high quality food, and lastly, to grow it in a more sustainable way. Please join us on PlantwisePlus. Asante sana, and thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much, Dr. Rangi. I'd like to also thank you all for your attention and participation today. We hope you found this event informative, but if you'd like to find out more, please visit our website, plantwise.org. And for now, I'd just like to say thank you very much and goodbye.